Welcome to our weekly Forex market analysis call, and this is in preparation for trading for the week of August 6th to the 10th, 2018. And before we dive in here, just a quick disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, so as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. Okay, so in terms of our economic calendar, Monday here we have for Canada, of course, a bank holiday. Nothing major coming out in terms of big news here. For Australia, we do have rate statement. Here the market is not expecting to see any interest rate hikes, but now we are seeing a lot of central banks changing the monetary policy. So these become very important. So we have seen US raise rates, we have seen Canada raise rates, now we have seen Bank of England raise rates, and ECB has started tightening the monetary policy. So overall, we are going through this period which is very different than what we have seen for all these years, where we have seen an expansionary monetary policy. Now we see that a lot of the central banks are changing their monetary policy because the expansionary monetary policy has worked. So the economies are doing better, and everything is better. And as a result of that, now it's time to start tightening the monetary policy before things kind of skew to the other side and inflation hits. So as a result of that, it's very important to pay attention to what the central banks are saying. Australia and New Zealand have not changed their monetary policy yet, and they have previously said that they're going to hold it. But now that things are shifting, the next step is that Australia is not going to cut rates. The only way they can go is go up. So even though they may not change rates at this point, but if the comments that the central bank has are more positive, they talk about positive aspects of the economy and things like that, that will be positive for Australian dollar or vice versa. So it's very important to pay attention to these things. So that will be the main thing here. And then we also have more data here for a New Zealand inflation expectation. So if inflation keeps going up, again, it puts pressure on the central bank to raise rates. So that's very important. So we'll keep track of that for New Zealand. And then usually after the monetary policy, the cash rate comes out here, there's usually we hear from the central banker. So we have RBA Governor Lau speaking. This will have an impact as well. So basically, it'll just be a follow-up on the monetary policy statement. But again, it will be important. And then following that, on Wednesday, we have monetary policy for New Zealand. And Australia and New Zealand, like I said before, they have not raised rates. So they're kind of next in the line now in terms of changing their monetary policy. So a lot of eyes will be on them to see what the central bank says there. So very important to pay attention to that here as well. And other than that, we have on Thursday, we have PPI numbers. These are this is a leading indicator from our fundamentals perspectives for the US. So this is important. And then again, we have RBA monetary policy statement. This here will not be as important because we would already have heard from the central bank twice before. So this is, I'm not expecting this to have a lot of impact. The first two will be more impactful. And then going into Friday here, we have GDP numbers for British pound here. We recently saw Bank of England raise rates, but it was more of a dovish rate hike like a lot of central banks have been doing now. So these numbers, if the numbers keep on coming positive, it will again put more pressure on the central bank to raise rates. So again, important numbers to pay attention to here. And finally, into the New York session here, we have employment numbers out of Canada, and very important here, CPI, which is the inflation numbers out of the US. So inflation has been going up for the US, and Fed has said that they're not as concerned about it just yet. So again, important numbers to keep an eye on. All right, so let's go on to our charts now. Okay, so in terms of our Euro US dollar here, Euro dollar has been trading in this range for quite some time. As we can see, price has been trading in the range here. Right now, we see that price is moving towards the bottom of the range. So the candle close for this week is bearish. As a result of that, I'm looking for price to go lower. 1.1520 level will be the first target for this. And then beyond that, if the price does break out of this range. So it's important to realize that it is a range. So when a price comes into the bottom of the range, it can very easily just go back towards the middle of the range. And if the range holds, that's the first case scenario that I would be looking for to see, can the price break the range? If the price does not break the range, then I'd be looking for price to just kind of come test the bottom and then move up higher towards the middle of the range once again. So that's the base case scenario, just because price is range bound at the moment. But all ranges will break. So if the price, let's say, breaks down, and then I'm looking for a retest of the range and looking for price to drop down further from there. So my bias is to the downside, and now looking for price to drop further. So that's basically my bias here. So overall bias is to the downside for euro dollar. Pound dollar here, pound, we saw that price did drop here as well. And now we have looking for price to drop further. Overall biases to the downside. We see that price has been dropping and looking for price to drop further. The next level that I'm looking for is 1.2760 level. So overall, it's been down for the last few weeks here. Now looking for price to drop further. Biases to the downside. 1.2760 will be the level. But again, we need to see a break of this previous low for price to continue lower. But the bias is to the downside. That's a nice solid weekly bearish candle close, looking for a follow through. And the target here would be 1.2760 level. So bias is to the downside for pound dollar. Aussie dollar here. Aussie dollar is also range bound. As we can see, price has been trading in this range for quite some time. We have pins on both sides, and price hasn't really done much. From the weekly perspective, this is a very, very neutral candle. You cannot get any more neutral than this. We have pins on both sides. Price opened and closed at exactly the same place. As a result of that, we are completely neutral on this. So Aussie dollar is in this range that we are trading in. So in this case, my bias is basically range bound. I would look for price to either test the high or low. So the best level to trade at would be a test of the high. Price, if the price holds below the top of the range here, which is what I would expect it to do, looking for price to drop. Once price comes into the bottom of the range here, looking for price to basically push off here, just like it did all these previous times. So overall, this is looking range bound as well. So best places to engage in here in price action would be 0.7460 level for a potential sell and 0.7320 level for a potential buy. So just treating this as a range bound for now. So neutral bias for Aussie dollar, especially coming into the monetary policy statement from the bank there. So that's something to keep in mind. And we saw ahead of the Fed statement there, we saw price went sideways. And we normally see this kind of behavior, especially when market participants are waiting for central bank to give an indication of what they're going to do. Market tends to go sideways prior to a big announcement like that. So just keep that in mind. Again, here as well, New Zealand US dollar, we are trading in a range. Price has been in this range for the last several weeks and hasn't really done much. The candle close here is bearish, so I will look for price to go towards the bottom of the range, which is 0.6690 level, which is the bottom of this pin here. The support resistance is coming all the way from here. So this one is also range bound, but overall within the range, I'm looking for price to drop towards the bottom of the range. And again, with this one as well, we have to see, will the range break? If it does, then I would look for back test of the range right into the bottom here, and then I will look for price to drop further into 0.6570 level. But overall, right now, price is range bound, and within that, it's bearish. So my target is 0.6690 level to the downside for New Zealand dollar. This one here, we are seeing the price has been dropping here. So for the last 3 weeks, we have been looking for price to be bearish. And it started all with this bearish pin bar on the weekly. So we have seen price drop since then. Now looking for price to drop further. Bias is bearish for dollar CAD, and 1.2820 will be the target to the downside. So bias is bearish for dollar CAD. Euro pound here, this has been... Let me just take this away. So we saw price go and test the high here. So as we can see, this is sort of a range bound here as well. So one thing to keep in mind is when we are in the summer months, this is the behavior that we tend to see. A lot of the big traders are away, financial institutions and stuff like that. People take time off, and they leave the junior traders in charge, and their goal is to just sort of, get through without making too many major decisions. And as a result of that, we see things tend to get a little bit more range bound in the summer, and then once we get into September, things pick up. So just keep that in mind. Summer trading tends to be like this. Either we see a lot of quick moves that do not have a lot of liquidity behind them, so small orders can move the price overall, or our prices tend to go range bound with that. So that's just normal summer trading. So for euro pound here, we see that price has rejected the high here. So from here, looking for price to drop back towards the middle of the range here. So the first target would be 0.8790 level. And then looking for price if price drops below that, the second target would be 0.8700. So overall, we have seen rejection here. So looking for price to come back down towards the middle of the bottom of the range here. So bias is bearish for euro pound. Euro Swiss franc, this has been dropping, and as we can see, bias is bearish. Now we are coming into the support resistance level here. So that's a very nice solid candle close for Euro Swiss franc. So bias is bearish. First target would be, which is very close, is 1.1480 level. So we need to see a break of this level, and then looking for a continuation to the downside, looking for price to come and test the bottom of this pin, which is a 1.1360 level to the downside. So that's what we are looking for here. So looking for price to drop further. Bias is bearish for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc here, looking for price to drop further here as well. That's a nice bearish candle close. We see that price has broken through the bottom here and looking for price to drop further. And as we can see, next target here will be... Okay, the next target for pound Swiss franc is 1.2865. So looking for price to come into the bottom here. Nice bearish candle close. So bias is bearish. First target is a 1.2860 level. Second target is 1.2750. So overall bias is bearish for pound Swiss franc as well. So that is bearish there. Dollar Swiss franc has been interesting. US dollar has been strong. And as a result of that, we have been seeing price just be range bound here. So price, this one is trading in a range. We see rejection in the bottom here. Price came to test this support resistance level here, got pushed up higher as a result. So now we have this doji close here. So looking for, so this one is range bound, just like we saw with New Zealand dollar, and we also saw with Aussie US dollar. Bias is basically range bound here. We saw rejection in the bottom, so I would look for price to go and test the high here. But overall, this is range bound. So the type of price action that I'm looking for here is price goes into high and then potentially a rejection like that, looking for it to go towards the high of the range. Overall, though, this is a range bound for dollar Swiss franc here. All right, so next one we are going to look at is pound yen. Pound yen here, we have seen price drop fair bit here. That's a nice pin bar that we see for pound yen. Bias is bearish, looking for price to come back towards the bottom of these pins here. This is the big candle where price had actually broken to the upside. Now we see that price has filled this move here and looking for price to come towards the bottom here. 142.80 will be the target to the downside. That's a nice pin bar. I do like pin bars. They are one of my best or favorite patterns, I should say. It's just a single candlestick pattern, but they're one of my favorites on a daily, weekly, hourly. Those are my favorite ones to trade. So pound yen here, nice bearish pin bar, looking for price to drop. 142.80 will be the target here. If price breaks this pin to the downside here, this support and resistance, then the next target would be a 139.20 level. But before that, the first target is a 142.80 will be the first target here. So bias is bearish for pound yen. Euro yen is looking bearish here as well. That's a big pin bar here, looking for price to drop further. The target here is 126.50. And then if it breaks that pin, I would look for price to come back into this pin right here. Again, the move started with price taking off here. Now we are seeing price come back into that. But for this one here, nice pin bar again. So pound yen, euro yen, both of them have nice pin bars. And looking for a bearish move here, target 126.50 for euro yen. That is nice one. Okay. Dollar yen here. Dollar yen, like I said, US dollar has been strong. And as a result of that, the yen crosses, or sorry, dollar crosses in terms of Swiss franc and yen, they have not done as well. With this one here, overall, let me just get rid of some of the support resistance lines here that we don't need. Okay, so this is what we are seeing. We do have a pin on the top here, so I would look for price to drop. But we do have this trend line going on over here as well. So price has bounced off of that. So we do need for it to continue to the downside. We do need to see a break of this trend line. And with the rejection here on top, we could see a break here. As we can see, this was a strong support resistance area and price struggled with that this week. And if we see the other yen crosses drop, this one could drop here as well. So my bias for this one will be to the downside. But like I said, we do need to see a break of the trend line and then look for price to drop. So that's what I would be looking for. One thing that it could do is it could push up like that and then do this trend line break. So this is the second scenario. But overall, I'm looking for price to come back lower. And the first target would be this support resistance level. And then we're looking for price to go lower. So in terms of targets, the first target here would be 109.25, second target 108. So biases to the downside for dollar yen as well. But between euro yen, pound yen, those are looking weaker than dollar yen. Aussie yen here looks a little bit range bound from the daily perspective. Let's go on to the weekly, and this one is looking range bound here. As we can see, price has been trading in this range for quite some time here. But we do have a pin, just like dollar yen, but keep in mind Australian, we have Reserve Bank of Australia monetary policy coming up, which will make a difference and usually can have a big impact on the currency. So keep that in mind. But again, we do see a pin. This one is more like the US dollar here, kind of range bound here, but because of the rejection, looking for price to drop towards the bottom of the range here. Target would be 80.40 level in the bottom here. So basically biases to the downside within a range. New Zealand dollar here. This one has a nice pin bar, looking for price to drop further here. So target is 74.00 to the downside. So bias is bearish and looking for price to drop. 74.00 first target, then 72.60 will be the second one. For now, that is the target. So bias is bearish for New Zealand yen. Okay, CAD yen. CAD yen here we see price has, Canadian dollar has been strong. So price has pushed up higher as a result of that. But as we can see, it is within this range right now. So we have a bullish candle close here. So price could go up higher and we could see a retest of this support and resistance level at 86.80 level. So for this one, there is still some bullishness left, but there is a pin up higher here that could make it drop. So I would look for a move like that. So overall, this one could push up higher. So not the best one to trade, in my opinion, because Canadian dollar is strong, Japanese yen is strong. So they kind of balance each other out and we could get a move like that. So this one is looking, has bullishness in it and can move further. All right, so next one we'll go on to gold. Let's take a quick peek at gold here. So gold has been moving lower. We've been talking about bearishness in gold for quite some time. This was the target that we have been looking at, or we've been talking about for a while now. So price is finally into this target. So what now? Now, this is a strong support here. As we can see, price took off all the way to the top from here. So I would be careful with this one. Overall bias still remains to the downside. We have a bearish candle close, but I think with this one, it could go up. So just be mindful of that. My bias is to the downside, but expect price to bounce off of this. It could even go and retest this 1235 level. So I would be careful with that one just because of this strong support here. As we can see, this is coming all the way from January of 2016 here. Very important support and resistance. So we could see price push off here. Just this candle here was very strong to the downside, but then price went and tested the low and then bounced off to the upside. So I would be cautionary here with this and just wait and see what price does. Overall bias still remains to the downside, and we could see price move lower into 1180. But again, this is where we become cautionary. All this time price has been bearish, but now it's important for us to be a little bit cautionary here. And I think what we could see here could be something like this. Price goes up. If it stays below this previous support and resistance right here, we could see a drop, and then we would need to see kind of a move like that. So that's what I would expect right now. Overall bias still stays to the downside. Once we see a break of this 1204 level, next target will be 1180 to the downside. So bearish for gold. Let's take a quick peek at oil here. Oil is looking range bound. For last 3 weeks, price has just traded in this range. Right now, it is looking very neutral. We have pin on top, pin in the bottom, small candle body. So this is quite neutral and looking range bound. So this one could go either way, but I would focus on the range here. And the range is 69.80 to 66.28 level. So that's our range and looking range bound at the moment. So neutral for the oil. I don't really have that, SB. Let's take a quick peek at copper while we are at it. Copper is looking range bound as well, bearish for this week. So I would look for price to drop further towards 2.65 level. Bias again within the range, looking for price to come back and test the low here. So this is looking a little bearish. And let's see what else I've got here. Let's take a look at silver. Silver, very, very range bound here. And so that's our weekly perspective. So the close here is kind of like oil. We have pins on both sides, small candle body. overall bias is to the downside. So I would just look for price to come back and retest the low here, 15.20. If it doesn't break the low, looking for price to go back into the range. So silver is looking range bound as well. Euro dollar and pound dollar, biases to the downside for both of them. Let me just do Bitcoin real quick, and then we'll go back to euro dollar here. Bitcoin looking bearish. We saw price had gone up on news that it may be listed on NASDAQ. Now it's looking bearish, and we are back into the support resistance area again. So as a result of that, looking for price to drop further, looking bearish, but this is an important support and resistance where price hung around for a while. And if you were to take a look at this, let me get rid of these two support resistance level. See how this is where price kind of hung around for quite some time. So we are back into this range. It is looking bearish. The candlestick is stronger here than these ones were. So we could see this repeat of this where price could hang around a while, but it is looking bearish, and the next target would be to the downside and looking for price to come back into 69.25 level. So bearish for Bitcoin. And let's just have answer that question for pound dollar and Aussie dollar here. Bias is to the downside, and I'll quickly tell you the target once again. Any other question while I answer this? So Shepard, I think you asked the question. 1.1520 is the target for pound euro dollar. It is a range bound here, so be mindful of the bottom of the range. Once the range breaks, I'm looking for price to go lower into 1.1380. But if the bottom does not break, then we could see price go back into the middle of the range. So be mindful of that. Euro pound dollar here is looking bearish as well. 1.2760 will be the target to the downside. Eamon, I do not have the dollar index here, but it would make sense that it's to the upside because dollar is looking strong, but I do not have that in front of me. Okay, any other questions? But Eamon, we'll cover that. I'll pull it up for our analysis tomorrow. So we'll go over that. But I just don't have it in front of me right now. Okay, perfect. So I think that's all the questions. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day here, and good luck with your trading this week. I will see you again next week. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone. Bye.